All right, I'm gonna dive into the next batch of stuff, if you guys don't mind. Um, all right, I just realized, like, God, it's already 10 past. Uh, so, the goal when it comes to sharing content, the guiding principle is consuming the content. This is true for your own stuff, which is why I said there's going to be a lot of overlap. When you're thinking about sharing content, the most important thing is thinking about how everybody's going to use it once they actually get it and start. And then, so it's all about the consumption by whoever your customer is when you're sharing stuff. Whether you're going to sell stuff or just give it away for free, it doesn't matter. You want to make it such that it can be readily used, and you want to optimize it so that it can be readily integrated by every type of GM into their own world. So you're going to want to organize your content for efficient access. You're going to want to make sure that content is ready for instant delivery to that GM's players. And that's where having the snippets broken out cleanly and that type of stuff. And you're going to want to provide guidance to that GM on how to put that content to use. So that's where some really useful GM direction snippets can come into play, etc. So with that in mind, there's something we don't have implemented yet. Well, okay, take that back. It's basically implemented, but no one gets access to it yet. And that's what we call packages. And even the beta team doesn't have this stuff yet. Basically, a package is think of it as nothing more than if you go to Amazon.com or something like that, or you go to Paizo.com or Catalyst's site and such, for each product, there's going to be the little blurb that describes it. It's going to be your catalog listing for all practical purposes. So the term package is what we're going to use for every piece of content that's going to be shared, whether it's for sale or for free, what have you. The term is it's a package. It's going to have the summary of information, and then it's going to have links to the actual sources, which I'll get to in one moment. And then that's where you're going to put your credits, your legal text, that sort of stuff. So with that out of the way, we get to the navigation launch points, and that's sources. A source, let me show you here if I switch over. Sources always appear at the top of the navigation pane. You can't have a source topic have a parent. Doesn't work. And there's only one source for a given piece of work. So a source is basically where a new player or new GM that's consuming your content is going to first actually look to use your material. Everything beneath that then is going to be, any child topics and such are going to be where you flesh out how the GM should view this information. If you've ever bought like published adventures and that sort of stuff, the first few pages are all about, okay, here's some background, here's how we recommend you use this, etc. All that information is going to be woven into the GM synopsis and the player synopsis, which are my next couple slides. And the source, though, encompasses them. So the source is pretty much what we've got, like for Rise of the Runelords here. This is the text that you get if you go to like Paizo's website and get the more detailed explanation of the Rise of the Runelords adventure path. It umbrellas everything under it, and there are actually two different sources for Rise of the Runelords. The reason being, in Rise of the Runelords, you've got a bunch of story content. You also have a bunch of game mechanics content. There's new monsters, new feats, there's the new campaign traits they've introduced, all that sort of stuff. So all that information, actually let's just bring up a new tab, is going to be under the mechanics reference, and you'll see there's a source for Rise of the Runelords. And you notice the structure here is very different. So the goal here is that the source is always at the top. So basically it's not like where is the information? It's at the top. From there, you vector into all the different pieces that comprise the content that you are sharing. So I'm actually going to drag this one over here. All right, so now I can bounce back and forth. From the story side of things, actually, let's just go back to the slide here, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. All right, so the source entry point needs to be suitable for viewing by both GMs and players alike, because it's always going to be there. Doesn't matter whether or not it's a player or a GM, if that stuff's going to be there. Beneath that will be any information having to do with the story side of stuff and or any articles that comprise it. So from the story side, you're going to end up, as I just said, just the basic sales description. From the reference side, you may want to actually use something like a table, have it be like the table of contents of the book. So let's say you're doing like a rule book, or this is my book of 10 new classes. And with those 10 new classes, you've got a whole bunch of feats and some new spells and some new traits and what have you. At that point, then you're going to have, just like a table of contents of a book if you were to publish it, just plop that right into the actual source entry. And it basically becomes instant roadmap to somebody wants, oh, I want to see your new feats. Click link. Great, they're off and running. It's basically the starting point for consuming your content, just like the table of contents of a book. And then, as I mentioned, some sources will require both, like Rise of the Runelords, because it's got a large crunchy component as well as story component. So the GM synopses. The GM synopses are a detailed overview of the story for the GM. So you're going to have links to all the major and minor story arcs. You're going to end up wanting to identify all the pivotal locations that everything centers around. Same thing with any major events that are at the hub of the overall story. Any sort of preparation notes, any sort of gameplay notes. If you look at something along the lines of any published content, pretty much, that's done in print, the first few pages of the publication are all about this information. That's what the GM synopsis is about. Now, you could easily, for something big like Rise of the Runelords, you could easily find yourself getting overwhelmed with a topic that's just miles long. So at that point, it's probably better to break it up, and that's what we've done here, where there's the GM synopsis, and in this GM synopsis, this information is basically just these opening paragraphs here are called straight out of the book, just copied. And 99.8% of the material that is in here for Rise of the Runelords right now, could be 99.9, is all just straight out of the book. We haven't editorialized, we haven't changed anything. What we have done in a few places is augmented. And that augmenting is for things like when you get here, using this material. There's a player synopsis for this adventure with a link to it that basically tells people where it tells the GM how they can leverage the player synopsis topic that we've already set up for them so they can get off and running. And so we've added an additional snippet here with the GM directions for it. We've added this information here, which is a list of all of the key elements that the GM may want to actually go straight to. So this becomes kind of his command and control center, the GM synopsis. He can get to anything and everything of key importance within the overall content with just a click. All right, and then like additional material, this is just pulled straight out of the book. Introduction, just pulled straight out of the book. Campaign pacing, historical perspective, all that sort of stuff, all straight out of the book. So this information here about using this material is what we've added. And where that's referring now is to the player synopsis. And now you guys are familiar with the welcome to my realm topic that automatically gets started at your home page effectively for every realm you create. Well, if you're sharing content, you can't modify somebody else's, you know, starting point topic. You need your own. That's what the player synopsis is all about. The player synopsis is everything that the players will need to get started. And so the player synopsis here has overview information. This is information we pulled out of the player's guide, the free player's guide to Rise of the Rune Lords, that comes with, all the character tips, types of characters to build. Notice every topic here is pre-revealed. So as soon as the GM, the topic is not. As soon as the GM is ready to actually play and get this campaign off and running, all he does is hit reveal to the player synopsis, and boom, now the players have this information and it's all good to go. The value there is, this comes back to my in my opening bit about consumption, it's ready for use. The GM doesn't have to go through and reveal all these different snippets. You've done the work for him. He's off and running. All he does is say go, and his game is going when he's ready to actually use this. And then the GM, what he does is he creates a link on his welcome to my realm that links to your player synopsis topic. And now his players have instant access to all of the information you've prepared, and the GM is free to go in and augment this to his heart's content. One thing you'll also see here is, like in chapter 1, there's the section, there's burnt offerings, and there, all I've got in right now for this is chapter 1 for Rise of the Rune Lords. But you'll see there's the section of places of note, and characters of note, and plots of note. So here, the basic entry to it is that snippet is revealed, but nothing else is revealed. But I've got set up here snippets to all of the most pivotal key players in the particular in this particular chapter. So at this point, as the game is going on, the GM simply says, "Okay, we're doing Festival of Fire. Reveal. Oh, they met Father Xantus. Great. Oh, they know about Sandpoint. They don't know about any of that stuff yet. But at this point, all I've done now as the GM using the content, I've revealed a few snippets, and now the players have access to all this, to all these first few bits of information. And I incrementally then, as the game unfolds, will simply reveal a few more bits and pieces. Now, you don't want to have this list be every NPC in your campaign, in all of your content. Just the cornerstone pieces, NPCs, places, and plots that are going to be of key interest to the players. The things that the rest of the story unfolds surrounding. If they're looking for a key event of some sort that is just, well, not really key. They're looking for some side event that happened that involved some NPC, odds are they'll be able to vector to it in one click, maybe two, from one of the key NPCs or key places or key events that you've now provided them access to here. If not, they can go in and just use the filtering and searching capabilities and find it, the old-fashioned way. The goal is to make it as smooth and easy for the GMs and for his players. And if you do these sorts of things for your own content, well, you're just going to make your life that much easier for you when you actually sit down and actually run your game. So basically everything in this seminar, 90% of the stuff in this seminar is going to be directly translated to your own games. One thing I didn't mention is with Rise of the Rune Lords. Oh, no, I need to go back here. This is like burnt offerings. Because of the volume of information in the GM synopsis stuff, and there's a whole bunch of context for each of the different chapters of Rise of the Rune Lords, there's a separate chapter as a subtopic that's a GM synopsis topic still. So there's the overriding, this is Rise of the Rune Lords GM synopsis. Then there's the GM synopsis for Chapter 1, the GM synopsis for Chapter 2. So here, if you remember the overall GM synopsis, there weren't tons of links to a lot of the details on that. Those are in the various chapters. So here, if we look at the using this material sections here for Festival and Fire, here I've got information on prep, but I've also got these are the key events. So I can immediately, as a GM, go to Swallowtail Festival, it's Initial Assault, all that stuff's right there. The local heroes, all the major scenes that come into play, all the major people that I need to be cognizant of, I can get to that very, very quickly here. And also, everything's vectored in through all of the content links here. So if I'm looking for something, I don't have to try to find it here in the body of the text. I can just look at the content link summary and find the thing I'm looking for over here in the alphabetical sort. Go, oh, that's what I want, boom. This is basically your quick reference overview of these are all the links. Use it. It's really, really fast that way. All right, so I already talked about the player synopsis stuff. Is there anything I missed here? Basically, the second bullet there is the only thing I didn't really cover. It's basically, from the player's perspective, the player synopsis topic is the home page for your content. It's where they vector to everything. It's their starting point. Okay, so another important thing when putting together content for sharing is diversity of approach. As we talked about in the previous seminar, different GMs work different ways. There's the GMs that are all about topics. Give me the actual crunchy bits. There are the GMs that are all about, I want all the pretty cool pictures and stuff. Tell me in pictures, not in words. And then there are the GMs that I just want the big picture with storyboards and that sort of thing. If you want to maximize the utility of your content to the widest audience, you want to make sure that you have all those different types of GMs covered. If you get a GM that is all about the plots and the storyboarding, and you don't have any plot diagrams, that GM is going to find himself probably wallowing through all of the text you've got. Now, that GM is also going to have that same problem pretty much with every published adventure known to man right now, because very few publishers, if any, actually provide that sort of information. That's where RomeWorks actually provides something new that actually makes the content that much more useful for people who think these different ways than just prose. So cover everything. Cover scenes and storylines, cover the regions and adventure areas, and cover the plots. You want to make sure your content is fully searchable and filterable. So you want to use tags. You want to make sure there are tags associated to your content as a whole. So, like a Rise of the Rune Lords tag. And then assign that to every single topic that comprises your topic or your content. That's actually really easy to do, to have it automatic, have RomeWorks automatically do that for you. I'll get to that in just a moment. You can also set tag stuff. Each major story arc should ideally have a tag. This is, in the case of Rise of the Rune Lords, it's pretty much Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3 through 6. In your games, it may be, the assassination of the Duke is one major story arc. Okay, and the next major story arc is you've been framed, and now having to dig out of all of that stuff, and that has some major story stuff going to it. And then, the next, after you've cleared your name, the next major story arc may be, finding the real killer and exacting revenge, sort of thing, what have you. Any major regions should have their own, everything within that region, not just that topic itself, but everything within that region should have a tag for that region. Every major location, like the Dungeon of Doom or the Catacombs of Wrath or something like that in Rise of the Rune Lords, should have its own tag. That way, if I come in, like, I think Catacombs of Wrath is probably an excellent one because I think I've actually got that open here from other stuff. You can see Catacombs of Wrath, there's this regional scope tag. I can actually come in and say, add the tag, the active filter. And then, well, I'll need to actually come back and go to the Story Almanac. Wow. Oh, I have to actually activate the filter. Why didn't it actually do that? Oh, because I didn't have it active? Is that it? Come on. There we go. I'm going to need to make a note of that bug. But anyways, at this point, everything that's tagged with the Catacombs of Wrath instantly pairs down my list. What this means is that it's very, very fast and easy. If somebody, okay, my PCs are going to Sandpoint. Boom, I just want to see Sandpoint. I don't want to see all the other stuff. So you can quickly narrow that stuff down, and your content becomes instantly that much more usable for anybody trying to consume it. You can set up auto assignment of tags during content creation. So for example, this is what I was going to say. I was going to show you this in just a moment. Oops, auto assign stuff. So content scoping. So I can either set up scope filtering. I can also set up automatic assignment. I can go in here and say automatically assign. Oh yeah, go away. Let's go to the region tags. Region scope. Where are you? There we go. Regional scope. And then I can go with Catacombs of Wrath at Thistletop. I can basically say any new piece of content I create, auto assign this tag to it. And now at this point, if I go, let's create a new tab. And then I can go ahead and create, demonstrating my amazing ability with names. We'll name him Fred. Yeah. I have to cycle through. I used Fred before George, so it's Fred's turn again. Yeah. Fred is in use. Yeah, I know, that's fine. But you'll notice here, it automatically has this regional scope tag, Catacombs of Wrath. I didn't have to go add it. All I had to do was, and you can see here it actually says little lightning bolts like, I'm doing something here, I'm going to auto assign stuff. I can turn that off, turn it on, it's my heart's content.
Can you do more than one?
Yes, this is just a list. So what you would generally do is have a tag for all of your content, and then have additional tags for the story arc, and additional tags for so there's a story scopes tag and a regional scope tag. And then you'd also have tags for all the major regions. Regions would also include, like Dungeon of Doom or Cathedral of Wrath, that sort of thing. Anything that's like physical versus story. That way, in general, there should only be 3 tags on any piece of content in general. There's going to be the exceptions that prove the rule, where something is tied to a region in your content, something is tied to some aspect of the story within your content, and then it's tied to your content as a whole.
And you can auto assign all 3 of them.
You can auto assign all 3 of those at the same time. Yes. So like here, once I've got this set up, now this is the other thing you can do. If I go in, use Quick Create. Remember how I was harping on Quick Create? It will list, do I want to auto assign all tags? That's a typo. Should be auto assign all tags. Oops. So here, it's got the list of tags that I've defined as auto assigned, but I don't have to assign these to every single topic. In fact, as you're coming up with stuff, there are going to be times when you think of this other location. Oh yeah, I'm going to reference this other location, but it has nothing to do with the area you're working on. Or you're working on NPCs that aren't tied to a location, they're tied to story, and now you're coming up with a new location that's going to be somewhere over there. You don't want them to get assigned the wrong tags.
Or you are working on a location and suddenly Fred the Barber from this other place pops into your head and you don't want to forget it.
Exactly. So I can just go here and say, no, nothing. Or, yeah, I only want this one, but not this other one over here. If you've got all three going, you may say, I want it tied to the region, but not tied to the story arc. And so you can do that as when you're doing the quick create and just get the right tags and go. All right, so that's stuff. All right, so you want to make sure your content is organized for the GMs that are going to use your stuff. There's cast lists. Group your NPCs by region. You may only have 14 NPCs in your content. You may only have 8 or 10 like locations in your content. That's fine. The GM who is consuming your content may have dozens of his own. He wants to keep your stuff separate from his stuff. And so go ahead and just create a container, a cast list topic or a group list topic or storyline topic or whatever, as just a container for all of your stuff. That way the GM can expand and collapse your stuff whenever it suits his fancy. But it's also easy for him to just put it aside until he needs it when he's ready to go in to use your stuff. Let's see here. Set up relationships for residents and that type of thing. Make sure that if you've got some town like Sandpoint, for example, in Rise of the Runelords, that's going to become a hub of operations for the PCs for quite some time. You're going to find that you will be regularly, the PCs. I'm going back to town because we need X supply. Okay. There was the guy we saw in town. What was his name again? That's going to be a common question. You got, in my gaming group, nobody can remember a person's name to save their life. There was the guy. He looked like this, but he can't remember the name. But he was in Sandpoint. I know he was in Sandpoint. Great. At that point, you as the GM either have to have all this stuff memorized as well, or you can go in and simply say, "Give me Sandpoint. Give me all the residents of Sandpoint in the relationship diagram, and which one of these guys was it?" And once they've got Player Edition, they can go in and say, "Give me Sandpoint. Give me all the people associated with Sandpoint," and boom, now that's the guy right there. So empower the GM and his players by providing those links together through the relationships. Same thing with levels in an adventure area. Same basic principle. Hook all that stuff up. Last thing here on this slide is there's the whole story versus world almanac stuff. And I don't know to what extent you guys are actually worried about that. As your content gets larger and larger and larger, you're going to want to use just a piece of it at a time and not have to wade through everything else. So we've got the distinction between the story almanac and the world almanac. The world almanac is everything. The story almanac is what I'm working on, what my game is centered on today. So Rise of the Runelords, if I just got Rise of the Runelords all 6 chapters, that's a crap ton of stuff that I'm going to have to sift through at all times. My players are in Sandpoint. I really don't care about all the other regions that the story travels through. So I want to put all that stuff in the World Almanac, and I want to bring Sandpoint into the Story Almanac. That way I've got a nice compact list of stuff that I'm wading through a few hundred topics as opposed to thousands of topics. Do the same thing, enable it for the GM to easily do that by putting everything of yours in the World Almanac, doing the filtering doing the tags so that he can quickly filter stuff. And once he does that, he can just say, "Oh, great! I've got everything for Catacombs of Wrath, or I've got everything for Sandpoint. It's all filtered down. Move, done. Now I'm good to go." And the GM is off and running using your content. So leverage that. This looks familiar. Differentiate your content. Now, the first one is specifically for people to please help folks like me. Provide creative assistance if you can. Many of us, especially me, have really bad trouble coming up with good names. So, if you're good at that, please, by all means, name your characters with cool names. Make me happy camper. It brings your content to life. It also, though, most importantly, it avoids integration issues. If I publish a bunch of stuff with NPCs named Fred and George, and Frederick and Georgie and Freddie and every permutation of those two names, it's going to be a problem when most of you integrate my stuff into yours because if you're, you may have a Fred, you may have a George, and now we have that problem that I showed you earlier of, oh, I've got two Georges. Great. Which one do I want to link to? I don't know. Which one's which? They're both named George. So differentiate your content as much as possible. There may be a name collision, but if you come up with creative names for your stuff, then redundant names are going to be much less likely. And then your stuff will coexist nicely. And when somebody's trying to link to their stuff, they won't inadvertently get a collision with yours and they start and blame your stuff. Because of course it couldn't be their stuff that's unimaginative. It's so keep that in mind. Yeah.
You thought about putting a random name generator in Roblox?
Yes, that's one of the many things on the to-do list and stuff. And our focus right now is the core.
Right.
And once we've got a list a mile long of things we want to do, and there just aren't enough hours in the day to do it as fast as we want to do it. But the squirrels are running in that wheel as fast as they can.
There are other generators.
Yeah.
Of varying quality.
That's the big thing, varying
Yeah,
quality.
you can do the random stuff, so, but just in Runworks.
Absolutely. It's something that is on the infinitely long to-do list. So help GMs use your creation. So provide them with plot hooks for integrating your content into their existing campaign. Ensure your snippets are of appropriate granularity so that the GM doesn't have to go in and edit your content so that he can reveal it appropriately. It is better to have a GM hit the reveal button twice because you split this up into two different snippets than for the GM to go, crap, and have to actually split your snippet into two and stop the middle of the game when he realizes this. So keep that in mind. 2 clicks is a lot easier than stop, edit, split, reveal one. Use GM directions for gameplay notes. How you think something should be done, how you envisioned it. Let them know. They aren't obligated to use it. They can ignore it just like they can in printed material today. But using the GM directions puts it right there, and they are free then to go, that's great, I'm going to do that. Or just, delete, delete, delete. Now I got my own better idea for how it's going to integrate to my world. That's great. But I'm guessing 9 times out of 10, a GM is going to say, I like that, run with it. As opposed to, how do I make this work in my world now? Pre-reveal snippets. As I showed you, like the player synopsis. Reveal all that stuff so that when the GM just says go, he reveals one thing. There's a lot of aspects of various topics like locations and individuals and that type of stuff where there's a few bits that are almost always going to be known when something first gets introduced. Or the way you set up your content, the players are assumed to learn this information when they arrive in this area. Great. Detail out reveal each of the different snippets of the stuff they are assumed to learn when they arrive, and then the GM just has to reveal the governing topic, and boom, they're off and running. There's still going to be plenty of snippets that aren't revealed this way. To the GM, they're going to come up during the course of the play, but this makes the GM's life that much easier. And then the last thing is clean up your topics and articles. That's something that has not been done with the Rise of the Runelord stuff. But if I wanted to, I could go to, for example, actually, let's just go to Sandpoint, I guess. All right, within Sandpoint, you'll see there's nothing in profile, story, points of interest, anything like that. This is just empty space, cluttering stuff up. When you are actually sharing your content, come on up to the tools and do quick edit content and remove empty snippets and sections. It's going to confirm. Yes, go. And now it's not saved yet. You have to actually hit save to commit this change so you can undo it. If you, after you see it, you go, oh, wait a minute. But at this point, all those empty sections are gone. So that way there's no clutter for somebody consuming your content. This is also something that you can use for your own stuff when you've got things that it's just less to scroll through. Just unclutter it. You can always go back later and I can say, quick edit content. I can say synchronize the structure to match the category definition. Now all those sections have reappeared. So you aren't going to lose anything by doing that, but you're going to unclutter things. So for an NPC, for a location, after you get it pared down, unclutter it for yourself, and it makes life a lot easier for yourself to manage and work with that. And if you ever decide, oh, I want to go add X, I want to go add Y, no problem. You can go back in and you can either use the resynchronize mechanism, or I could go in and say, well, if I pare it down again, let's go ahead and remove empty sections yet again. Now here I could then say, go ahead and add a new section as below this one, and it's automatically going to show me what the predefined sections are that I've deleted out of here. So, oh, I want to add points of interest. Great. And it adds points of interest back in, and you're off and running. So the information is always recoverable in that respect. All right. Using objects, map preparation. Keep your map images at nominal size. Not everybody has, 50 gigabytes of bandwidth coming down with their fiber network. Some people are actually still on dial-up. So keep your map images at nominal size, and when you've got beautiful stuff like yours, then an ideal thing, I believe, is have like a downsized version, downsampled version that's like the overall area, but then give them submaps that go into all the rich detail, and then just have pins in like the world map to the different regions, and then they can go and get all the glory of the actual smaller area in full detail.
Split mine down to 100 small pieces.
Wow, that's a lot of pieces.
And then
Okay.
each realm, it's 100 realms.
Wow.
And
Okay.
some forests and stuff.
I really want to see that one these days. So get the larger. So basically, also don't create topics where a simple pin will suffice. This is something I mentioned in the last seminar. Don't create bloat in the topic list for somebody consuming your content. When you're integrating pictures and artwork, be sure to add some little annotation about stuff, and also if you need to, due to whatever you're doing with stuff, if it's work that you need to provide the artist's name, artist credits, that sort of stuff, it's a great place to do it, just right there with the annotation on the picture. Also, ideally, you want to support multiple game systems with your stuff. Realmworks is completely game system neutral. Now, people will tailor it for Pathfinder versus Shadowrun versus Warhammer 40K versus whatever they might happen to play. To the extent, like let's say you're doing fantasy stuff in general, and you want to support 13th Age, and you want to support the new D&D 5th, and you want to support Pathfinder and such. All you really need to do that is separate stat block and or Hero Lab portfolio snippets, and then just have in the name and or annotation of that snippet what game system it's for. Then it's perfectly easy for somebody who imports your content to say, oh, I'm running this in Pathfinder, and delete the other 2 or 3 snippets, and he's off and running. He doesn't need that stuff. He can blow it away out of his database, but he's got what he needs. And it lets you do things in a very clean and simple. I support 4 or 5 different flavors. Pick the one that you want. Mark.
Is there an exclusive filter? So you could then say, well, I want to see things that don't include Pathfinder. So I'm not playing Pathfinder or playing some other system, so show me all the things that don't have the Pathfinder. Or just.
You mean within the filtering engine on topics? Yeah.
You could filter out your snippets for your stat blocks and say, well, don't show me the D&D 5 tag stuff. And I would drop out those stat blocks.
Got it. The filtering is done on a topic level,
Okay.
not on an individual snippet level. So the way it presently is set up, that doesn't mean we couldn't do something like that. But right now, it's find me all topics that do, or there's also exclusive, but it's do or don't contain this tag overall the topic. Because like in the previous seminar, there was the rogue sorcerer. You know, it's like, well, if I'm precluding based on a snippet, I may or may not get the guy into that filter the same way.
So I can exclude at the filter level, I just can't do it on snippets.
Correct, just not at snippets. All right, and if you've got specific game system details for something, for like an NPC, it's like you've got like a few bits of information about how his abilities work with Fate, or how his abilities work in Pathfinder versus D&D 5th edition, or what have you. Then at that point, just create different subsections, one for each of the different game systems. So again, the GM who's consuming your content, if he wants to, can just go in and delete or collapse at his discretion the sections for the game systems he doesn't care about. And he's just got the content right there. He doesn't have to do it at the snippet by snippet delete level. He can just delete this section and all of its snippets, and he's done.
So if you were doing something like a trap, you'd have a sort of a description of the trap with GM directions. This is an EC 25 defined and disable for Pathfinder. And then you'd have a separate GM thing for Fate.
From a GM directions standpoint, for something like that, the assumption is that the trap would probably, in its descriptive text that you're even going to reveal, probably have some nuanced differences, game system X to game system Y.
Oh, so you,
And so you'd probably just have 2 different snippets with the GM directions distinct to the game system there. If it's just a situation where there's one, this one snippet versus this one snippet for game system X versus Y, there's no need to have a subsection for that. If you've got a collection of snippets, then put it into a subsection, so then it becomes easy for the GM to put it out of sight. If it's one, don't worry about it. All right, so customizing category structure. The default category structure, we put a lot of time and effort into trying to distill out something and running it over and over and over again with the beta team to get something that would be a good starting point and a good framework that most content would work from. So only customize that category structure when the predefined stuff doesn't suffice and your changes are going to be used heavily within all of your content. I'll get to why that is in just a moment. Feel free to hide all the categories, section types, and snippet types that you don't have any use for in your game and in your content. It's very easy in the category manager to go in and, let me actually show this here. If I go to manage categories, there, save, no, don't bother saving that. Old, slow laptop. All right. So I'm in here, and if I want to say like, where's individuals always a good one because I got 4,000 things. Here I could actually say, you see a little shown checkbox shown here. I could say, I really don't care about personal and professional life. Don't show me this. Don't show me this. Thank you. Go away. Then you can also say things like, I really don't have any celestial stuff in my land-bound fantasy game, so go away. Once I do this, that stuff will not appear when you're creating new content. If you're not going to use it, just hide it. It doesn't delete it. It just means when you create new content, it comes with those sections not in existence. You can easily go in, as I showed a moment ago, and add a new section for one of these. They're all there. They're just not something that's going to be auto-added when you first create content. Where this comes into play then is if you're not going to use a section, why make yourself have to clean it up and skip over it on a regular basis? So where this ties into here is just because you've hidden it, if the person consuming your content uses it, it's perfectly fine, because it'll exist in his stuff. It won't exist in your stuff. If he wants to add that stuff back to your stuff because he wants to flesh out those details himself, it's a few clicks away. So nothing is lost by doing that. Augmenting categories is safe for sharing your content. So if you add a new section type, or if you add new snippets of different types to your just like the individual category or the location category or something like that, all your new content will include that stuff, and your new additions will come down in everything when somebody imports your content. They won't have that for their own content, but they'll have it in all of your content. That's perfectly fine. Where things get dicey is when you actually customize things. Not adding, not just augmenting and not hiding, but actually, delete that, and add these two things in. At that point now, your structure is very likely to not match their structure. When that happens now, it will work, but it will actually be it'll be like a mental shift that the end user is going to have to make. When he goes and he's used to seeing things one way, and he's looking through his content, then he clicks on your content, and all of a sudden things aren't the way he's used to. It's this whole what's the term? There's a term in it from psychology and such. It basically interrupts the whole mental flow of things, and it becomes just like something that catches your eye that just because it's wrong, it will become something that becomes a distraction to that user in many cases. So strive to avoid changing things for maximum accessibility and usability of your content. If you've got things that you think of that we have overlooked that we should add to the category structure, let us know, please. We keep making incremental changes to that over the past many releases. We've been making little tweaks here, little tweaks there, introducing a new category or two where the case has been made that, we really should have that. And it's like, that's a good idea. Yes, we will add it. So let us know if there are things like that, and we will then give it some serious consideration and probably get it added into what we put out as just the baseline that everybody uses. At that point, you're just good to go. So feel free, let us know on that stuff. Yeah.
I'm currently putting in Carrion Crowns with 3. And what I was doing, I got the warning early on when I got the program from the early release to not change things because of that. So what I would do is, like, for location, I would create a new location. Everything was the same, but it was a subcategory of location, and then I would rename it to whatever the location was, like the woods or the lodge, and then everything would fall into that. Is that going to cause problems?
Yes. that would cause problems because what happens then is you've created an entirely new category that all your content is based on. Now, it won't be a problem in that the user will be unable to use your content. The difference is that your content will now appear a little bit differently. So, for example, if I go in now, if I'm just using the simple groupings model like this, we just see like people, places, things. Actually, let me just go to Fred here and collapse some stuff. Yeah. If this is all I'm going to see, then it's not a big deal. Where things get more interesting, though, is when somebody actually has gone into preferences here and they want to use like the simple grouping and category or the category-based groupings. At that point, oh, I've got them collapsed. That's not going to show me anything. But under people, I've got the cast list separate from entities and individuals and such here. So why is that? Okay, that's a bug, it looks like. Yeah, okay, that's a bug. When we get back. All right, so now all of a sudden you've got your category showing up in here as an additional category with this stuff gets grouped under. So all of your stuff for all of your locations would be grouped into a separate grouping from all of the users' locations. They'd look the same, they'd act very similarly, but they would be grouped separately from each other. And it's not a bad thing. It's just going to be a little bit, it'll be of mild disruption to some users. Some users will get all bent out of shape and go, they're OCD. And they end up saying, okay, I got to change all of your topics to their location or vice versa. And they're not going to like that. Other users will just roll with it and it's not a big deal. Some users will never see it because it's all just in the simple groupings and they don't even know there's a difference. But it's something to be mindful of. What type of changes did you make to locations, for example?
Well, it all stayed the same, it's just when I duplicated location, made
Right.
that a subcategory of the main location,
Right.
and then I just changed location name to the lodge.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you basically changed labels effectively.
Yeah,
Okay, if you do that, then then that's just labels as long as you don't really change the meaning of things.
no,
Okay. So at that point then what would happen is your name of the lodge, if you basically did that to the base category, base location category, your change of location name to lodge name, let's say, would then not actually appear to a consumer who's using your content.
even
It
though
would
it's a subcategory
hang
of
on.
lodge.
If you
I
went
mean,
and
of,
if it's a subcategory, absolutely, it's its own separate thing.
uh-huh.
If you were to instead have gone in and managed categories and said, like here, cast list, I'm going to rename this to, well, actually, or something better. I can go concepts, have some stuff, yeah. So if I change description here, well, I need to go in and say, yes, I want to remove protection. Warning, yes, thank you. Now I can go in here and say, other name. And I saved this, and then I created a concept topic. For me, it would show up with other name here. When I shared that content and you used it, it would actually show up with description as the name. The reason we do it that way is we're trying to accommodate foreign language users as well, where they're going to change the name of many of these things to be whatever their native language is for ease of use. But they're not, so if things are different, we don't want to touch what they've renamed it to. we want to leave it and however they've set it up. So at that point, the name that they've set will override whatever I have changed when I'm sharing the stuff. Now, the flip side of that is that if I have if I import somebody else's shared content and I've renamed it to my custom name, then I will always see my custom name, which is what I wanted. So is that helpful to what you're talking about? I'm not sure of the exact situation, how and why you're trying to do it this
I
way.
didn't want to mess with the original, and I wanted, like, in Carrying Crown Book 3, you've got the woods, you've got the lodge, the temple, and the deserted city, and so I wanted each one of those to be a separate thing that all of the content would go in of the location, the information that would fall into location.
Okay.
Topics.
That's something that I need a little more context. We should probably talk about offline. Do you have like any of that information on a laptop here at the show?
Well, I can do that Sunday.
Yeah, because I was going to say, stop by the booth on Sunday because that's something I'd love to see exactly what you're doing and give you a very accurate answer after better understanding exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Because I only know of Carrying Crown. I've never read it or played it, so I'm not sure if I'm even mentally envisioning things correctly to give you an accurate answer.
Okay.
So let's do that on Sunday. Stop by the booth. I should be in the booth pretty much all day. Okay. We're after in time. Important note, any revisions to category structure will only apply to new topics created after that point in time. It doesn't go retroactively affect old topics. If you want to have it go back and do that, then on old topics, you can actually use the resynchronize to structure. Let's say you add new section types, new snippet types and such. Just do the resynchronize on that, and it'll add whatever new has shown up.
So would you have to do that for each individual topic?
At the current time, yes. Yeah. That's something on the to-do list is batch operations on multiple topics and such. One of the many things.
Because you guys just don't have enough on that list already.
Yeah.
And he's got thousands of people in the forum going, hey, you need to add this too.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, the squirrels are running as fast as they can in that wheel. All right. So thank you very much, everybody. We pretty much the entire development team is here. So stop by and ask questions in the booth. Stop by and ask questions on Sunday. I'll be in the booth pretty much all of Sunday. I'll be in the booth a lot of tomorrow. So if you've got specific questions for me, that's great. But most of the guys on the team can definitely answer the questions as well. Thank you very much, folks.
Thanks for watching our Gen Con 2014 seminar, Preparing Content for the Realmworks Content Market. Be sure to explore the other videos on our channel, and make sure to check out Realmworks at www.getrealmworks.com.